Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lawyer Reacts. My name is Sasha Struthers and today I am going to react to a video with a neighbor-on-neighbor dispute, which I do not take on neighbor-on-neighbor dispute cases. I also don't take on tenant-on-tenant dispute cases, which are, if you frame it, also neighbor-on-neighbor dispute cases. I'm very interested to see what happens. Already, she has Anna Wintour's hair in a poodle. I have a strong feeling this lady's gonna be a little extra. But let's get into it and see what is up.
And things got out of hand. She even tried to get an order of protection against the lady because she's a loose cannon and can go off at any time. Bottom line, the woman harassed her and her dog mercilessly. She's been harmed psychologically and is suing for $4,975 for harassment. This is the defendant, Melanie Carducci. She says the plaintiff's nothing but trouble, and living next to her was like a nightmare that never ended. The woman would...
Like right off the bat, both of these women, you can tell are both egging each other on. This is a common setup that I see. Two women, one lady already uppity. She has black turtleneck, bright blue blazer, Anna Wintour's hair, and a poodle. Those are all elements of someone who's gonna be uppity. It is what it is. Then you have a lady who's younger than her. She's also gonna be uppity. I've seen this a lot where two women, they just fight with each other. They're just combative because they simply can be. There is no rationalizing between the two. As a woman, I can say that. I've experienced it a handful of times. So I have a feeling both of these people were causing drama and then they just kept escalating it back and forth. But let's see what happens.
Start confrontation after confrontation with her. And she felt like she was living in a jail because the plaintiff would videotape her through her windows.
I love the zebra
It's a
glasses.
nuisance and is continuing to be a nuisance.
Lady is chic.
Because it has no merit. She's accused of being a nasty...
Already, her facial expressions are very telling. She probably is someone in the right. Probably wasn't harassing this lady as much as this older lady thinks she was being harassed or felt harassed. But already with her facial expressions, she seems sarcastic. She seems like someone who has to have the last word in the conversation. And if this was, like, let's say a jury trial, well, it's not. It's just an audience in the back. But it's a bench trial with a judge. Actually, even with a judge in a bench trial, you have to be very careful in court how you express yourself because it does you no favors if you seem sarcastic, if you seem combative, if you don't let the other side talk, if you are not cordial. So those facial expressions, those slight, would not serve her any favors. Don't smirk. If you're in court, don't smirk. Don't do it. Don't ever smirk.
All parties, please raise your right hand. You see the Catholic. Litigants have been sworn in.
Thank you, Douglas. Wendy Cooper. You are suing Melanie Carducci for $4,975 exactly in harassment. Okay.
Correct.
What is your relationship to each other?
I moved in on the same property where she was previously living. It's about an acre property and she lives a house down the hill and I'm up the hill, basically a driveway separating us and the hill.
Okay, so, and are you two the only ones at the time who lived on the property?
It's just me and the dog and she has two children.
Okay, and how old are the kids?
6 and 8.
Okay, so what happens? Let me hear from you first.
Well, basically, I moved in on June 24th and on the night of July 7th.
Why is your dog here?
He's a service dog, he's a therapy dog, and he was attacked, as I was, by her 2 pit bulls.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. There is a difference between a service dog and an emotional support dog. If I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to this, I believe only dogs can be service animals. The only ones can train for that, per ADA. An emotional support animal, as we know, could be a penumbra of different things. Could be a dog, could be a cat, could be a rabbit, an iguana, I don't know. But those are two very different things in the law. So when the judge asks, why is the dog here? It does probably seem apparent to the judge that it's a service animal because service dogs are meant to help those that are visually impaired for the most part. So she doesn't seem like she has, like she's blind. I mean, she has glasses, but she doesn't seem to be blind. But there is a difference between a service animal and an emotional support animal, which I'm not going to go into. That's like a whole heavy topic, but I just felt like that was worth pointing out because the judge pointed out. I don't know why.
Of July 7th. He is a licensed registered therapy dog. I have PTSD issues, so he protects me first and foremost, but then we also go into nursing homes and hospitals and so forth as a therapy dog for other people.
Okay. All right. So go on.
So on the night of July 7th, we came home about 9 o'clock. Her two pit bulls came out of her house up the hill, attacked him, and attacked me. And it was a horrendous, vicious attack by these two dogs. One of them was put down. The other one remains alive today and viciously comes out, even though she's under a restraining order for that dog to be muzzled or leashed at all times. She does not do so.
Okay, slow down. That happened in July.
Mm-hmm.
Your dog survived the injuries.
Thank God, yes.
And the pit bull, were there two pit bulls or one pit bull?
There was one pit bull involved that actually, I was doing my homework and I had the window open because it was July, and she went right through the screen. It was it was horrible, and I agree, and but that's being dealt with in civil court, so I'm not sure.
She's suing you in civil court for that?
For $15,000.
$15,000?
Yeah,
Okay. With a lawyer or without a lawyer?
she has a lawyer for that.
Okay. So you have a separate lawsuit with a lawyer
That's for the injury, Your Honor.
For
This
what
is
injury? The injury
for
you
the
just told
injuries
us?
to the dog and to me. My hand was injured. I've had 2 surgeries on it since the attack. So that's a separate
So
issue.
just out of curiosity though, you've had 2 surgeries on your hand due to the attack?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And whose decision was it to put the pit bull down?
It was mine. I didn't have to. They told me I had to quarantine her for 14 days, but it was horrible.
That's
I
a
was
tough
not
decision.
involved in the fight, but how she got her injury, she was not involved. She was hitting the dog with her purse.
Well,
So-
I mean, she either has injuries or doesn't, has had surgery or hasn't.
The insurance company had it in their fraud unit, so that tells something.
How did you know that?
Because I'm in contact with the owners of the property. We're both being sued, me and the owners of the property.
Okay.
A few things here. What the pit bull owning neighbor is getting at is she doesn't understand why she's being brought in this venue, which we don't know yet. We'll get into it. But the reason why that's important is she could be judicially stopped from bringing the same claim again. So a claim that's already being processed. Civilly, she can't bring again. This is typically small claims. It might be drastically different than what civil litigation is being handled, which is in another department, has different jurisdictional limits, and handles different causes of action, potentially. So we don't know yet what is going on in this case, but it seems like it would be similar. Then she's saying that she, pit bull dog owner, and the landlord, the owner of the property, is also being sued. I don't know. I think these are in Florida. I don't know Floridian law. So I don't know what grounds the landlord could be sued for the fact that the tenant's dog, which is the pit bull owning lady's dog, got out and attacked Anna Wintour. I'm just gonna call her Anna Wintour. Is that mean? I won't call her that. The poodle owning lady. I don't know why they're suing the landlord other than they're just probably trying to gain a larger pool of money to collect from, which is very unfortunate. But I don't know the laws of Florida, so I can't quite tell why she would be suing the landlord for that. But let's move on.
It's been there 2 weeks and we were starting to become friendly. The first day that I was actually there, I had a tie down out in the yard for him, and this dog, the one that remained alive after the attack, the one that did the terrible damage to his rump, stitches 3 levels deep, was done by the dog that remained alive. So there was definitely 2 dogs involved in the attack.
What about the landlord? Didn't the landlord get upset and say?
The landlord did not tell me anything. I never had a problem before this. There was people living there before that had a golden retriever. My dogs got along great with that dog.
So this happens, and what goes wrong that you consider harassment? Tell me about the instances of harassment that ensue after this.
It was she would have her dog, the one that remained alive, out all the time without a leash or a muzzle, and here's the restraining order that was issued by Animal Control on that animal that said it had to be leashed and muzzled anytime it came out of the house that it had attacked.
Let me see that.
Her dog would come over and poop all over my yard where I'd have to get out of my car. Her son would yell up to the window where he could see the dog and wave at this dog because
Right.
my dog could see him out the window just to get him aggravated. And
She would
basically,
be videotaping us so my kids would wave at her because every time we stepped outside, she would be videotaping us from the window, so we would wave to her. People would come, my parents, she'd be videotaping them from the window. That's
But
harassment.
what made it get this bad?
She's crazy.
Okay.
I've seen this in cases where tenants don't get along, like their neighbors, and they start doing that. That's at the beginning of the escalation. So there's usually an initial confrontation, like something happens between two neighbors. In this case, I'm going to use neighbors and tenants kind of interchangeably because they're both tenants and they're both neighbors. So usually some beef happens. I don't know what happens. I don't know why it happens, but like they rub each other the wrong way and something goes down. In this case, it's, two dogs. Then there's no really ever coming back from that. There's not going to be like them sipping lemonade on one of their porches. That's not going to happen. So what happens from there is there's usually one tenant or neighbor more paranoid than the other. So then they start recording. And with having a video camera on your phone, it's really easy to just record. And a lot of that is actually to antagonize the other person. And in this case, the lady who owns the poodle is doing it probably to antagonize the lady who had the pit bull and has the kids. There's probably not really grounds to do it. It's an antagonizing tactic, but also to some degree, she's trying to build a case against that neighbor. So then it'll kind of come down to who has the better evidence. You don't necessarily, by having more evidence, have better evidence or a better case, but in this instance, she's probably trying to capture her neighbor doing something again to break either this restraining order that she has or to prove what I think she's now trying to prove, which is harassment, some sort of civil harassment. And the more she films, the higher chances she's going to find that that filming is going to antagonize the lady with the pit bull and cause her to react and do something that she can catch on camera and go, hey, look it, I'm not crazy, she's crazy. Also, very common is they start name calling. In this instance, pit bull dog owner lady is like, oh, she's crazy. That's like a loose term you can use. I don't know if I would describe her as necessarily crazy. She just disagrees with you or has some sort of dispute with you. Doesn't really make her crazy, and in court, language like that is not really going to help you.
But okay, was it because of the attack in July that it got? That's why it got that bad afterwards?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I presume you were apologetic. She knows you put the dog down.
I felt horrible. Yeah. I mean, I offered to get her prescription for the her medication and everything, and she just went downhill from there. It just got horrible. She called the cops on me all the time.
Okay, how many times did you call the police on her?
At least 3 or 4. Well, every time she would release that dog out, which she did, she would release it out in the evening when I'd come home. I came home one night in October with somebody else driving. We came in, it was dark, she released that dog out, and he screamed at me, get in the car, because she released the dog. She got angry when she was served with eviction papers by the landlord.
Oh, were you evicted?
The town was seizing the property because there's 2 houses or a barn and a house on one property. Nobody could live in the barn. So I had just moved in and the town was on me. They were seizing the property because nobody can live there. It can only be a business.
Yeah, I see the eviction papers.
I don't have the eviction papers.
Okay. Let's discuss the animal restraint order. According to
when you're going to these kinds of cases, neither one of them seems to really have any paperwork, and neither one of their cases is organized. For instance, either side should have had some sort of timeline written out. And if they were going through the dispute, they should keep a diary of what was going on. So, on this day, the lady called the cops on me, the cops came, this is what happened with the cops. On this day, I went and picked up her prescription and gave it to her. And then likewise for the lady with the poodle, if she's claiming this dog is out and roaming around, she should have, hey, here's every time that the dog's out roaming around in violation of this restraining order. So both sides here seems to not have a very clear timeline of what is going on. Probably not necessary for the judge to decide on, but it's good to keep your facts straight and have paperwork in order.
you just handed me. So be securely muzzled when on its own property, except when confined in your residence. Can't be loose at any time on or off your property unless securely muzzled. Okay, after you were served with this, did you let the dog?
I bought a muzzle. The muzzle didn't work, so I had him on a leash.
Okay, so the answer is yes, the dog was unmuzzled, but according to you, on a leash. And I presume that the reason that you're being videotaped is because according to you, I'm going to see videotape of the dog roaming around, neither with a leash nor with a muzzle.
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. Can we put that up on the screen, please?
There's the dog right there. I believe, yep, right there. Running around.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why is that okay? Why are you saying yeah? Why is that
Because
it's okay.
it was never enforced that I had to have the
It's
dog
okay.
on a leash.
Here,
I lived
sit.
there for all that time
Sit.
until I
Here.
was served
Here,
with
here's
the
the
order.
That's the order.
Right. When I was served with that, I put my dog on a leash.
It's okay. Hey, sit.
I'm just asking whether you followed the restraining order or not. That's the basis of the
Yes, I
harassment
did.
claim. Right, except for that you're telling me, well, I had her on a leash but not a muzzle, and that's already not following it. Were these all taken on the same day?
No, they were not, Your Honor.
So now we kind of get what's going on. They have this case about the injury that happened to her dog and herself, the poodle and the poodle lady. Now we know why she's in court. She's doing a separate case for the violations of this restraining order. And what's not helping the pit bull owner is that the order says what the order says. You need to have the dog muzzled. Now to say, well, the muzzle didn't work, I don't know what that even means. How does a muzzle not work? I know the dog ate through it, I'm not sure. But the order says the dog is to be muzzled. And that's what's gonna get her in trouble, is if these videos are after that restraining order came out saying the dog needs to be muzzled when not inside the residence at all times when it's out.
Did either of you ever seek the assistance of the landlord to try to figure this out?
I did speak with the landlord, and her response to me was, Melanie's dog, Melanie's problem, quote unquote. The landlord and she were not on the best of terms when she stopped paying the rent, so.
I think that's an unfair question for the judge to say. Maybe the judge is just trying to fact find, but I think it's unfair to put that on the property owner. Like, has the landlord intervened? A landlord is not a mediator. There's not really much the landlord can do. She has a restraining order. Maybe potentially in this jurisdiction, the landlord might have grounds to evict the tenant. I guess the tenant was under some sort of eviction anyways. For the landlord having rented this unit that I guess was not rentable. But as far as tenants, disputes with one another, that's typically not on the landlord to resolve. Now, there's certain instances where maybe the landlord, if the tenant provides enough of a case against the other tenant, the offending tenant, they might be able to do some sort of nuisance eviction to say, like, well, what has the landlord done to resolve it? That's kind of a really leading question and unfair to the landlord. Also, specifically, the landlord's not involved in this dispute between them two. So unless she's asking it specifically to figure out if there's been like some sort of mediation efforts in the sense that, have they tried to resolve these disputes between each other? Okay, but to say like, what has the landlord done about it? That I don't think is necessarily fair.
Was it non-payment of rent or was it the rezoning? Or the zoning?
I stopped paying rent in August because they were seizing the property and I had to save money
When
to
did
get
you
a new
move out?
place. December.
Yep. So for the months of August, September, October, November, and December, how many times did you see the dog out and not muzzled?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day, yes. ma'am.
And every day did you call the police or animal control to come and get the dog?
No, I did not. Animal control told me that he wrote the restraining order, but he could not enforce it unless
You had
he
to go to court to
actually
enforce it.
saw it.
Right.
I did take out protective orders, and basically what the judge told me was the protective orders for civil don't cover a dog being used as a weapon, basically. Even though she,
Well, I don't know if it's rational to say the dog is being used as a weapon.
I was terrified.
I think she hates you and is happy to put you in distress if that's I think that she feels like you are making her life hell, so she's returning the favor. I can also see that the dog is out a lot. Did you abide by this order or did you let the dog out anyway?
I did. The dog was out sometimes without a muzzle or a leash. Majority of the time,
But I
the
mean,
dog was on
why
a
is
leash.
that okay when there's been an attack already on your property? Why does she have to live terrified that if she's getting in and out of her car, I'm watching your dog on the tapes. Your dog is scary.
Welcome back to the People's Court. I'm Harvey Levin here. So what do you do to break the tension in a neighborhood war?
Hey, just go next door and try to make peace. I think that's the best thing you can do in a situation like this.
That's not a bad answer. What do you say?
Communication is key.
Okay, but remember, you are at war, so something happened.
Smile, try to make the best of every day.
Smile. Going in
That guy looks so
I'm not
chipper.
gonna have that dog and nothing in between me and the dog. So why is it okay for you to do that after what has happened?
I have a feeling with the pit bull owner that she has a tough time accepting responsibility for her actions. She already said, I stopped paying rent because they were condemning the property. The issue about rent is irrelevant to this. She was getting evicted. We don't know. There's no court papers in front of her. But she already rationalized, I'm not going to pay rent because I need money to move. Then she didn't pay rent for, 5 months? So she just unilaterally made that decision. She doesn't seem to say that there's any sort of ruling that says she doesn't have to pay rent. She just unilaterally made that decision. And why I'm pointing that out is she unilaterally makes the decision that her dog just doesn't need to have a muzzle. Even though it's on an order given to her that says your dog needs to have a muzzle. And that's what's going to get her in trouble, is irrespective of the fact that maybe this other lady's uptight. The lady did get attacked. She had to go not one, but 2 operations, and her dog also had to undergo an operation. And the fact that this pit bull owner is told your dog needs to have a muzzle. And then there's video footage showing, hey, the dog doesn't have a muzzle on. And she's admitting, yeah, I didn't do it. She just executively made the decision, I'm just not going to abide by the rules. And that is the problem why a lot of tenant on tenant disputes happen, neighbor on neighbor, is one person just decides, I'm just not going to follow the rules. And then the other person comes across as really uptight because they're potentially the victim of them not obeying the rule. And that's where I think it's very unfair, and responsibility is very, very key. In anything, it doesn't matter that you're a tenant and that you don't own the property. You have a responsibility to be respectful of everybody around you. And I think that's the core of this case, is that she's not being respectful of the other lady. The other lady's, been attacked. It's not like, their dog's like scrapped or whatever. I mean, the dog had stitches, the lady had 2 operations as the result of her dog. And to not take responsibility and to not address the order, which is designed to keep everybody safe, by the way, it shows complete lack of responsibility.
No, it's not, but there's been numerous things that have happened.
Like?
Okay, well, there was many altercations that she would say stuff to my kids.
Tell me.
She began to yell, and she said to me, do your kids know how much you've been arrested? And this is none of her business.
Do you happen to have an arrest record?
I do, but that's...
So it means that she researched you.
Absolutely.
And then yells in front of your kids, do your kids know how many times you've been
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that happens?
That's not nice.
Yeah, she's got 8 or 9
Ma'am, did you
convictions.
hear my question?
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, did you say to her in front of her children, so her 8 and 6-year-old children could hear it, do your children know how many times you've been arrested?
Her children were in the car, she was passing by, I said it to her, not
Why
to
would
the
you say
children.
it to her?
Because
For a
she
person who doesn't want to be
constantly,
harassed, it sounds to me like you're adding fuel to the fire.
she constantly
Yeah.
harassed me. It got to the point where I felt like I couldn't even come out of my house. My whole summer I spent in the house because I was...
And you are suing for...
If you, in this case, let's weigh the two. The slightly bigger victim of the dispute is a lady whose poodle got attacked and she got attacked. In that sense, she has valid grounds to be afraid, especially when the pit bull owner is not muzzling the dog. That being said, it does, again, no favors to escalate it and then to harass or bully or punk around the other person because you deem they're doing that to you. There's the age-old expression, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. There's no reason, if you're being harassed, that doesn't give you license to then go and harass the other person, because that's not going to hold up. I was being harassed and therefore I harassed. You potentially can negate your damages by also participating in, inappropriate or unlawful conduct. So to go and scream out the window, does your kids know how many times you've been arrested? To piss off, the pit bull lady is one thing. How is that going to benefit her children to be told that their mom has been arrested? The kids clearly live with her. Think about that. Do you think that's for the kids' best interest that they think their mom is a criminal or is a bad person? Because maybe she's been convicted, maybe she's been arrested, but the lady said very early in the video she was doing her homework, so at least she's trying to make something better of herself. And in that sense, you should give her the opportunity. So to go scream that at her kids, that doesn't help the situation, and that's not really fair to the lady.
How do you come up with the figure 4,975?
Actual medical charges not related to the injury that happened. That's separate. This is due to anxiety and distress. neurological workup, so on and so forth, came to about $13,000. And all this just heightened the anxiety and the distress for me.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, but here's the part I don't get. If you really don't want to keep this feud going, then why do you stand in a window with the recorder, and why do you sue her after she moved out?
It was actually filed.
Because it sounds like it doesn't sound like either of you want to keep peace. It sounds like both of you hate each other and want to up it one more and one more. That's how it sounds to me. However, all I need to see is, did in fact you, in complete violation of the animal restraint order, continuously let the dog out when you knew she didn't want you to, and you keep doing it? You had the dog roaming loose every day as though this hadn't happened. And that's not okay. You don't have that right. That's worth something. Okay? I'm finding in favor of the plaintiff, not in the amount that she's asking for, but in the amount of $2,000. That's my verdict. Good luck, folks.
I literally honestly feel like that judge sometimes, like, I'm done. And throughout, that was like kind of a doozy, because there was a few times where I thought she was not gonna rule in favor of the poodle owner, and you can sense that the pit bull owner felt like started getting comfortable with the judge, and the judge would like kind of like 180 and be like, but anyway, you've been bad. My takeaway from this is, if you have an issue with another person, you document it. You can try to enforce your rights, seek compensation for your injuries, but do not further escalate it. It's not going to do you any favors. It's not going to make the situation any better. And again, the lady was good in getting a restraining order. She documented the incident, and then she got the restraining order against the dog, which that's why there is a case here to begin with now, is that they had this restraining order and she violated it. So always keep your paperwork in a row, keep your times and your dates in a row, keep notes of everything, but always be very civil and very cordial. That will get you much farther in life. Okay, that is it. Until next time. Thank you.